jurors. It is a deliberate, ongoing, strategic investment to reach the potential jury pool.
I like talking. I like to reveal the truth.
The retrial for Karen Reed officially begins today, and we're bringing you live moments from court throughout the jury selection process.
All right, let me change this up. Day one in the books. Let's roll it, man. I'm telling you. It was interesting. You know, I've been subpoenaed a lot of times to go to court, but being a law enforcement officer, I was exempt from going. So for me to see this happening like this, it's interesting for me to see. New courtroom, I believe. And what I did is I took the first part of Beb's address to the jury, just because I wanted to know what the questions were, what the process was. It was pretty interesting to see it happen. And then when she started asking the questions, what I did is I put in the question, but then I cut out when they were reading all the numbers. Okay. So let's keep watching. I've got some questions to ask, and maybe you guys can answer them. You guys are pretty good. You guys enlighten me quite a bit. So I teach you, you teach me even more. So let's rock and roll. Okay. Okay. New shirt.
Please stand. All persons have any business before the Honorable Beverly Canoni, Justice of the Norfolk Superior Court, and for the County of Norfolk. Draw near, give your attendance, and you shall be heard. God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. This court is now open. You may be seated. Jurors remain standing. Everyone else may be seated.
I'm sorry, jurors, could I have you all raise your right hands, please? Do each of you solemnly swear to make true answers to such questions as should be put forth to you by the court, so help you God? Thank you. You can have a seat now, I promise. May I call the case, Your Honor?
Yes.
Your Honor, this is 22-117, the Commonwealth versus Karen Reed.
Counsel.
You want counsel?
Counsel.
Can I have counsel identify themselves for the record, starting with the Commonwealth?
Good morning, Your Honor. Laura McLaughlin for the Commonwealth.
Good morning, Ms. McLaughlin.
I'm Lally for the Commonwealth.
Good morning, Mr. Lally.
Good morning, Your Honor. Hank Brennan for the Commonwealth.
Good morning, Mr. Brennan.
Good morning, Your Honor. Alan Jackson on behalf of Karen Reed.
Good morning, Mr. Jackson.
Good morning, Your Honor. Elizabeth Little, also on behalf of Ms. Reed.
Good morning, Ms. Little.
Morning, Your Honor. Robert Alessi on behalf of Ms. Reed.
Good morning, Mr. Alessi.
Good morning, Your Honor. David Yannetti for Karen Reed.
Good morning, Mr. Yannetti.
Good morning, Your Honor. Victoria George on behalf of Ms. Reed.
Good morning, Ms. George. Good morning, Ms. Reed.
Did you see what I did there? Wow. The difference that little bit of theme music does, right? Put a little clown music behind Hanky Panky and his party, and they look like clowns. You put some heroic type theme on the Dream Team, and it makes you feel like they are the Dream Team, right? Oh my goodness. The Dream Team taking on the clowns. Let's roll.
Karen Reed, can you please stand? Karen Reed, you are now set at the bar to be tried, and these good men and women who I shall call to pass between the Commonwealth and you upon your trial. If you'd object to any of them, you must do so before they are sworn. You have a right to challenge any 16 jurors without giving reason. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, jurors. My name is Beverly Canoni. I'm a judge of this court, and I want to welcome you here today and give you some idea on what you will be asked to do. So, jury service, as you know, is one of the most important duties we have as citizens. We appreciate...
I got to stop it right now. Couldn't somebody tell her to move that water bottle? I mean, especially if like doing a setup, right? Oh yeah, Bev's gonna be sitting right here, her water bottle. Why don't they move it away from her face? It looks like she's drinking all the time, right? Maybe it's me being petty.
That you're here, ready, willing, and able to serve if you're called upon to do so. And our system of justice simply does not work without you, so we thank you. This is the case of Commonwealth versus Karen Reed. The Commonwealth alleges that at approximately 6 a.m. on the morning of January 29th, 2022, the Canton Police Department received a 911 call reporting an unresponsive male party in the snow outside a residence at 34 Fairview Road in that town. Officers responded and discovered the man, later identified as John O'Keefe, off the roadway in the front lawn area. Officers identified 3 women with Mr. O'Keefe, one of whom was the defendant, Karen Reed, the girlfriend of Mr. O'Keefe. The defendant had been with Mr. O'Keefe the previous evening at 2 different bars in Canton and had driven with him to this residence in the early morning hours of this date.
Okay. Why they say that should have been right there. Something happened. I messed up something. But anyway, what I was asking is, why would she say that they had been out drinking at the bars, right? She could have said a different choice of words. She could have said they were at a restaurant or they're out on a date and they had to consume some drinks, right? But she had to specify that they were at the bar. I don't know if I like that. Tell me if she had it worded it that way, or could she word it some other way? But I just don't like it.
Mr. O'Keefe was treated by paramedics from the Canton Fire Department and transported to the Good Samaritan Medical Center, where he was subsequently pronounced deceased. The Commonwealth alleges that the defendant struck Mr. O'Keefe with her vehicle earlier that morning and then left the scene while Mr. O'Keefe lay injured in the snow during a blizzard. The defendant denies these allegations. She is presumed to be innocent and has pled not guilty.
Yeah, exactly. Let me pause that real quick. You got to hear Commonwealth's case, right? What they're trying to charge her with. Why isn't the defense allowed to say, or Bev say, hey, the defense argument is that they're being framed, that Karen's being framed by a corrupt police department, and she's fighting for her life because of they're trying to frame her with piss poor evidence collection, and evidence doesn't really show anything. Am I right or am I wrong? Maybe I'm just in the head.
So Ms. Reed is charged with second-degree murder. She is also charged with manslaughter while operating under the influence and with leaving the scene after causing personal injury or death. I will describe these indictments in detail at the end of the case when I teach you the law, but briefly, murder is the unlawful killing of a human being. There are various ways in which the Commonwealth can prove a murder case, and the Commonwealth is permitted to proceed under all theories it believes it can prove. Here, the Commonwealth alleges that the defendant committed murder and that the murder was murder in the second degree. In order to prove the defendant guilty of second-degree murder, the Commonwealth must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant committed an unlawful killing and that it was done with malice.
Okay, where's the malice at? Was the malice the phone call that she left Officer John O'Keefe for the text messages because he wouldn't respond back to her calls and her text messages? Is that what they're trying to spin as malice, that she was mad at him? Let me know in the chat what you guys think.
In comparison, involuntary manslaughter is an unintentional, unlawful killing caused by wanton or reckless conduct. These terms and the elements of the crimes will be explained to you in greater detail at the end of the case before you begin your deliberations. Now, at the outset, I would like to address the issue of public interest in this case and the duty of this court to adhere to the rule of law. John Adams said that we are a government of laws, not of men, and that the law must be deaf to the clamoring of the public. He meant that while the public opinion about a given subject may ebb and flow, the law must be steady, reliable, and even-handed. We know that on the subject of this case, there are people advocating for one outcome or another with intensity, but without the benefit of having heard or seen any evidence at all. The law works in a different way, and the difference is crucial to our system of justice. The jurors selected for this trial will hear and judge the evidence. They will decide what the facts are, and where the evidence is contested, they will determine where the truth lies.
So did she say John Adams? I'll tell you what, right now he's with Sam Adams having a drink, rolling over in their graves, because that last case was nothing but a bunch of crap.
Ultimately, the jury will decide whether the Commonwealth has carried its burden of proving that the defendant is guilty of any crime beyond a reasonable doubt. People outside of this building have rights, and we know that they have voices, but this criminal trial will be decided by an independent jury, free from outside interference, based only upon the evidence presented in this courtroom and the law. This is the only way to ensure that every person who comes before the court receives a fair trial.
Well, remember, right? Morrissey and Hanky Panky were trying to muzzle the public, right? You guys can't be yelling anything mean, right? Freedom of speech, lady. Hanky Panky, Mr. Morrissey, freedom of speech.
It is just that simple and that important. So, while public comment will likely continue, the rule of law will be upheld. In order to determine your eligibility to serve on this case, I'm going to ask you questions, all as a group, and then I'm going to ask you to fill out a supplemental questionnaire. We have found that the use of this questionnaire is helpful for several reasons. First, there are some personal questions on it, and we ask that you be candid. In addition, the process of filling out the questionnaire provides the opportunity to be more reflective as you answer the questions, rather than being put on the spot and asked to give immediate answers. After you fill out the questionnaire, we will have you come up to the sidebar one at a time so that we can follow up with you on your answers to the questionnaire and to my questions. I want to thank you in advance for your patience as we go through this process. As you may know, the lawyers for the parties participate in the selection of the jury. Under our law, each of the parties has the right to exercise what we call juror challenges. This means that each party has the right to challenge a certain number of prospective jurors for any reason or for no reason at all. Therefore, some of you may be excused during the impanelment procedure. If you are not selected for jury service on this case, you should not take it personally. Don't think that somehow you're not a fair person, because it's not a reflection on you at all. You will be directed back to the jury room and perhaps be picked for another case. In a few minutes, I'll pose a number of questions to you as a group. You have just taken an oath that requires you to truthfully answer these questions and all questions posed to you. If your answer to any question is yes, I will ask that you raise your hand and hold up your juror card in the air with the numbers facing out so that the court officer can read the number from the card. You don't have to get your cards out yet. I'll tell you when it's time to get your cards out. Now, the fact that you answer yes to one of my questions does not mean that you're automatically disqualified from jury service. It simply means that there are matters that counsel and I must discuss with you. If you find a question posed to the group overly intrusive, you may elect to answer the question at sidebar. I may have additional questions for you which relate to issues that may be raised in the trial and are designed to give us information regarding your ability to serve as a fair and impartial juror in this case. And the lawyers are permitted to ask you questions for the same reason. This is not a test. There is no right or wrong answer to any question. We're simply looking for your honest and best answers to the questions. Now I'm going to have the lawyers introduce themselves. We'll start with the Commonwealth, and when the defense introduces themselves, please introduce your client. Mr. Brennan,
Your Honor.
Please.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hank Brennan. I represent the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Along with me and two other attorneys I'd like to introduce you to. All the way to my right is attorney Laura McLaughlin. Good morning. And next to me is attorney Adam Ballard.
All right. Let me apologize. Maybe I shouldn't have gone that far. Putting skeleton faces on his face. That's kind of mean. Anyway, I apologize. And if you have possible seizures because of the flashing light, well, I apologize as well. Man, that was bad.
Thank you. Defense counsel, please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Alan Jackson. I have the privilege of representing Ms. Karen Reed, who is to my right.
Good morning, members of the jury. My name is Elizabeth Little, and I also have the privilege of representing you.
ladies and gentlemen of the jury. My name is Robert Alessi, and I also have the privilege of representing Ms. Reed.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is David Yannetti. I'm an attorney. I have an office in Boston. I also have an office in Dedham. It is my privilege to represent Karen Reed.
Good morning, members of the jury. My name is Victoria George, and I have the pleasure of representing Ms. Reed.
Good morning, I'm Karen Reed. Thank you for being here.
What's Victoria's role? I think Brian said that she was in the other jury pool in Karen 1.0. Is she there to assist with jury selection? What's her specialty? Let me know. And Mr. Lassie, man, he's happy to be there, man. He loves his job. He had the big old smile. Let's go.
All right, thank you very much. Folks, I'm going to read a very lengthy witness list to you. It's important that you listen to the names because at some point I'm going to ask you whether you know any of these folks. So when you hear it, please listen to it in those terms. Now, it does not mean that all 150 witnesses are going to be called at trial, but you'll hear their names if they're not called. You may hear their names during trial. So it's important that we know if you know these folks.
150 witnesses. Holy moly, that's a lot. That's gonna, if they, geez, can you imagine if they call all of them, how long that will extend this case? And if they do call all of them, all it's going to do is confuse the jury. You know what I'm saying? Because that's going to be a lot of information to try to maintain and categorize and organize it to where it makes sense. Wow, that's insane. Strategy? I don't know.
That's the list of witnesses, folks. So in a while, I'm going to ask you all if you know any of those folks. So as you can imagine, this case is expected to take a while. The lawyers tell me that once we get a jury, which may also take a while, once we get a jury, that it's estimated that the evidence in this case should take 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay. Stop that for 1 second. 6 to 8 weeks. If things go bad for Karen Reed, which I don't think they will, but imagine that. She just said 6 to 8 weeks could be the end of your freedom. Right? Normal civilians, 6 to 8 weeks is just 6 to 8 weeks. Nothing. It keeps going on. You live your life the way you're living it. But for Karen Reed, 6 to 8 weeks could be the end of her freedom. Let that soak in. That's heavy.
So now I have questions that I'm going to ask you, and the court officers will read your number. So if you have that card, and hold it high, please. Do any of you folks or a close personal friend or family member know, or have you had any prior dealings with any of the witnesses whose names I've read? Please raise your hand.
That should be an 8. Yeah, there it is. It's an 8. My bad.
All right, thank you. Do any of you folks or a close personal friend or family member know, or have you had any prior dealings with the lawyers in this case or with the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office? I see no affirmative responses. Do any of you folks or a close personal friend or family member have any financial or other personal interest whatsoever in this case or its outcome? I see no affirmative responses. Has anyone seen, heard, or talked about this case? Please raise your hand.
77 jurors removed.
Okay, thank you.
You know what? Let me say something. I think there's probably more than 77. There's probably some jurors that have heard or seen or talked about this case, but they want to be involved in this case because it's, you know, one of the cases of the century, right? I'm sure there's a lot of jurors that are going to be violating some of these questions. I guarantee it.
Have any of you folks expressed or formed any opinion with respect to this case? If so, please raise your hand. Thank you. Are any of you folks aware of any bias or prejudice that you may have in regard to this case, or in favor of or against either of the parties? If you believe that you might have a bias, please raise your hand. Do any of you folks have any difficulty hearing or any problem with understanding the English language, any physical or mental condition, or any religious or philosophical beliefs that would interfere with your ability to hear the evidence in this case, to understand the evidence, to concentrate during the trial, or to deliberate for the purpose of reaching a verdict? If so, please raise your hand. Would any of you folks have any difficulty following the concepts that I've described? First, that the burden of proof rests entirely with the Commonwealth. Second, that that burden of proof is proof beyond a reasonable doubt and to a moral certainty. And third, that the defendant has absolutely no burden. She's presumed to be innocent unless and until the jury determines that the Commonwealth has proved its case beyond a reasonable doubt. Is there anyone who would have difficulty following those very important constitutional concepts? Okay. Now, I can tell you folks that after every jury trial, I talk to jurors, and they often tell me not only that their jury experience was an interesting one, but a rewarding one. I do understand, though, that for a few of you, however, service in this jury may be a substantial hardship, and let me explain what I mean by that. It's something more than mere inconvenience, because every civic duty we have causes us to be inconvenienced. It's far more extraordinary. It's something that would justify your being excused and a fellow juror having to serve in your place. I do understand, though, that it may be a substantial hardship. So if anyone has a substantial hardship, and what I typically mean by this is you have airline tickets or surgery scheduled during the course of this trial. But bearing in mind that this case may take 6 to 8 weeks to try according to the schedule that I've described, and keep in mind that I'll only excuse those who have a substantial hardship. If you think you are in that group, please raise your hand.
Wow, 35. Of course. 6 to 8 weeks of your life? Come on now.
So in a few minutes, I'm going to leave the bench to give you a chance to fill out the supplemental questionnaires that we have. I ask that you not talk to anyone around you or share with any other prospective juror or anyone any questions or comments or concerns that you may have about jury duty, either generally or in this particular case. If you should have any questions or concerns, you can raise that when you come back to talk to me. So we appreciate your patience. We understand that this will take a while, but I will recess now for you to do that. All right.
All right, that was it. Day one in the books, man. I'm telling you what. I learned something, though. I learned a lot of things. For one, dang, over 160 jurors were eliminated. I wonder how big that court, how many that holds. Can't be more than 200. So she eliminated over probably 3/4 if it only holds 200, hypothetically, right? Or 300. Dang, it's going to take a long time for them to get the juror pool, because you'd have to be living under a rock, like I said, to not know something about this case, right? Anyway, like I said, a couple things. If you've been subpoenaed for a jury, and if you participate, let me know, and if you enjoyed it, whatnot. But thanks for watching. That was day one. Day two, I'm working during the week, so I'll try to get what I can and see if I can get something out the next day, make it short so you guys can enjoy it with a cup and a cup of coffee, right? You like that? Get your day started right. Anyway, let me say this to you. My family raised me as an only child. It was pretty hard on my brother. Gonzo out. Make a difference in somebody's life. Peace.
1 Sam 5 and 1 Sam 6, copy of 425 call.
Copy. 1 Sam 5 en route. 1 Sam 6, copy, en route.